to discuss, but is there a run-in happening right now?
Yeah.
Is this a classic WWF 1990s run-in in the main event?
We have true ball knower, college basketball analyst Jacob Casadas joining us today. Welcome, Jacob, to the Bocce Boys. We have a lot of college basketball to run down today, and we need your help because true ball knowers like Jacob know that conference basketball tournament weekend or week actually starts right now. I may have watched like 4 or 5 different college basketball games already today, and it's only 6:45. That. Tell you right now that Bellarmine game earlier this morning was Jacob, let's start us off with some conference tournaments. Me and you have been going back and forth here last week. Some of your favorite tournament winners, some of your favorite plays, like how dialed are you getting this week for some of these mid-majors?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah. This is best time of the year. One of my favorite, probably my favorite sporting event is March Madness, but really the 2 weeks leading into March Madness are just as much fun, in my opinion. I'll tell you my favorite, maybe call it off the radar conference tournament has always been the Missouri Valley. I love the Missouri Valley tournament. The Arch Madness tournament is so great. I mean, how you can't make it any better. They put a gateway arch in the middle of the floor. That's incredible. And
awesome.
And those teams historically do pretty well in the NCAA tournament. That's never been a slouch conference. I mean, this year Belmont is not a substantially heavy favorite to come out of that tournament, but the closest built team I would say to being in the range of a power conference team. If they hadn't lost their game last week, they would be a strongly considered at-large team if they were to go to the final and lose. Now, I don't think they can do that at this point, but still a good showing from them this year. But there's a couple sleepers in that conference as well, like Murray State. So got to see. Another conference tournament that I'm really excited to see kind of off the radar is the American, because I think that South Florida could be a real player if they get to the tournament. No one's really going to talk about them a lot because I believe they have 8 losses or so, or maybe even 9. I think they have 8 losses this year. So, not like your stereotypical, kind of good team, real good to really good team like a Memphis that we've seen in the past come out of the American. But I think that people are going to sleep on this team. They'll probably be a 12 seed. Again, the American is a little bit jumbled at the top. There's a couple teams that could compete with them, like Tulsa. I would really watch out for them in the tournament too. But I'm not going to say I'm rooting for South Florida, but I would be very intrigued to see what South Florida does.
Kind of sounds like you're rooting for South Florida.
I want to see them in there. They're a veteran-laden team. They have a lot of guys that came from Power 5 programs. And we've seen in the past that these teams these lower major teams, these mid-major to lower major teams, they tend to do better and have more success in March when they build their rosters with transfer portal guys. And, it's the push-pull of the portal, because we've seen a lot of teams get their rosters taken away and brought up, like Yaxel Landeborg is the best example, a superstar at UAB last year. Obviously he wasn't going to stay at UAB. It was either NBA or Michigan. Right.
And then guys like Drake and Ben McCollum going to Iowa and stuff like that. It is very interesting, Jacob, but I did want to give you 30 seconds to talk about your favorite team, Mississippi Valley.
Oh yeah. Mississippi Valley.
Talk about your system.
Well, so my system for Mississippi Valley State this year was strictly bet against them and bet the spread of whoever is playing against them. Now, I will say that I have to publicly apologize to the Mississippi Valley State Red Devils because last night and the previous game, they played their hearts out. They actually won 2 of their last 4 games down the stretch. Incredible end to the year for the Mississippi Valley State Red Devils. I'll give them their flowers. Shout out the Red Devils. They finished the season 3-28.
Yeah.
It's better than most people thought.
100%. Nobody was talking about the Red Devils this year.
No. They played a 10-20 Jackson State team last night and almost beat them.
And it was you and the parents watching.
It was me and the parents watching. Yep. And I watched, and I'll tell you what, I don't think a lot of people notice, but they quietly have a 21 point per game scorer on their team.
Oh,
yeah, Michael James. Mm-hmm.
Feel bad for that guy.
Yeah, seriously.
He might not be there much longer.
So before we get to the power conference stuff, and we could talk about that all day, let's talk about the bubble, Jacob, and talk about the true tiers of the teams going to this tournament. Because everybody wants to talk about the tip of the spear, the top of the nation, very good, very elite. I would say the top 5 seeds in this tournament will be pretty strong. But after that, we can talk about Villanova, we can talk about Wisconsin, we can talk about a lot of teams that are just above that bubble bracket that aren't quite as good, but also the bubble is really weak this year. So are we leading towards maybe another Cinderella year, or are we going to skip that again? Because last year was pretty favorites heavy and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good way to phrase it. I mean, you kind of have your top 5-ish or so teams, right? With those big 3 who have been at the top all year, and then Florida has gotten extremely hot of late, and UConn, I know that they've had some games where they make you scratch your head a little bit, but
and then they beat St. John's by 30.
And then they beat St. John's by 30, right?
Yep.
And you look back at what they did in December and November, and they beat Florida, they beat Kansas on the road, they have no shortage of great wins for UConn, but it's interesting because I feel like after those teams, you could take teams 6 or 7 maybe down to team 35 or 40, and the margin is not huge. Yeah, it's really not huge. But on any given day, if you told me that St. Louis was going to hit 15 threes and beat St. John's by 15, I couldn't put it past you, because I don't really think that the margin between any of those teams is that strong on the best day, especially on the best day for any of those teams. We've seen. So does that open the door for some Cinderella teams, like maybe a 12 seed, or maybe a team like Miami, Ohio, for instance? I would say yes, because
talk about Miami, Ohio, because you had a big passionate take this week about the Auburn stuff and all of this.
I did. Bruce
just ruined Jacob's week with that quote, by the way, which is up in the top right. Basically saying that he believes that Auburn should easily get in over Miami of Ohio, since they're playing arguably the hardest schedule in the league, and Miami of Ohio.
I appreciate his honesty, though, being like, "Did I help my son get the job?" Of course.
Nepotism is one of our favorite things to do too. Yeah, Bruce.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, Auburn's chances to make the tournament are not 0, and they should be 0.
That's ridiculous.
But I know. I mean, I with them, to me, it's almost like, what do you want to see from these teams? Do you want to see them win big games, or do you want to see them play high-level opponents? Because the way that I think about it is, what difference does it make if you play 10 teams in the quad 1? But if you don't beat any of them, what does it matter?
Yeah.
And then and they haven't beaten 0. They've beaten, a couple, 4, I think. Strangely, sorry, go ahead.
Ohio, in terms of, facing off against these Auburn teams, I'm hearing people say if they even lose a conference tournament game, they should be out. But they went undefeated in the conference. That is a accomplishment within itself. But where do they stack up against these teams? Because they're not really winning handedly.
No, they're not. They're not winning handedly, and I think that that's probably going into fueling the fire for people who want to see them, get if they were to lose, if they were to not win the MAC. I think that that's really the strongest talking point for a lot of people. When it comes to them making it or not making it. But, you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it in the way of they've had their back completely against the wall in so many games this year. And in the last 3 minutes of a game, they've found a way to win. So 100%. The pressure has been on, once they got to 14, 15, 16 and 0, there was no bigger target on anyone's back in the MAC than them. You know, you're getting everyone's best shot. Now I know the MAC, the bottom of the MAC especially, is extremely weak, but the top of the MAC is not that bad.
Akron,
Kent State is pretty good. Akron's only loss was to Miami, Ohio.
Wow.
So, you know, I like, you know, that Akron team is a good team. If you told me that Akron would steal a game in the NCAA tournament, it wouldn't shock me one bit. That team's a really talented team.
So is Akron to win the MAC a good bet, or do you like, you know, the Red Hawks? Is it Miami, Ohio?
Hawks? The Red Hawks. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Davis had mentioned to me earlier in the week that Akron would be a slight favorite over Miami, Ohio.
Really?
And I don't disagree. I bet that's almost certainly the truth.
Interesting.
I just hope that those teams get to the MAC final. I don't really see Akron losing before then.
Yeah.
And I mean, who am I to say that Miami, Ohio is going to lose before then? Because they've just been finding a way to win every single game that they've played.
That matters the most.
Yeah, winning the game at the end of the day matters the most. So I'm not really too concerned about their, you know, what they've done and how they've won the games. I'm more just concerned that they've won the games at this point. And I think that most fan bases around the country who are fans of the bubble or fans of bubble teams, like you look at, you know, Auburn fans or Indiana fans, or maybe not so much Ohio State fans anymore, but maybe Cincinnati, up and coming bubble team right now. I think that it would be in their best interest for sure for Miami, Ohio to just win the conference. I think that they should really be pulling hard for that, because, you know, Miami, Ohio, they have their last regular season game today, and it's you know, if they win that, they'll be 31-0.
If they lose that, that's massive. No,
on the road at Ohio today, 4.5 point favorites. But this is actually a spot where I'd consider looking at Ohio, because there's just been so much buzz about the perfect season, you know, and
it all comes down to this.
I could see happening. Storybook, they lose tonight, they end up winning the MAC as dogs against Akron, and they still make the tournament. Like that,
absolutely could see that,
in my opinion.
I absolutely could see that. Do you know that Miami, Ohio hasn't won a game at Ohio since 2011?
Oh, that is nothing to see those out there.
Yeah, it's 100%. Basically it's a cross state rivalry. They're not far away from each other.
So talk about the big game of football. This is the big game in basketball.
Absolutely.
Right tonight. No, but arguably Akron, I would say, probably the best team in this conference, even with a 29-0 or 30-0 Miami of Ohio team. The odds aren't out because the regular season isn't done, but honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if I saw Akron as like a -105 favorite to win the conference. They're probably more realistically going to be +140, and Miami of Ohio is going to be +160. But if you saw that minus number right in front of Akron, you know that's off Ethan's bet slip, because he only bets on plus numbers right in front.
Bingo.
But Akron, I don't think if you got a plus number there in front, I wouldn't be shocked if that would be on my card.
100%. So, fellas, let's get to the top of the nation. Let's talk about the guys that can most likely win this. Jacob, you already talked about there are a couple teams at the top that are, you know, really good, that have been there all year. You know, Duke, Arizona, Michigan, UConn, Florida. We could throw Houston in there. You could throw Michigan State in there too. But a lot of these teams have been pretty all over the place. A lot of these teams have been number one for a second, like Houston, and now they're down to 7. So, like, who is the favorites going into this? Who do you really think can win the national championship, even if they are outside the top 10?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to look past those top 3 teams, you know, because they've kind of, you know, they've all seemed to face moments of strife a little bit this year, and they've never really had any repercussions from that, as in, like, you know, turning 1 loss into 2 or turning 2 losses into 3. Like, it's been a loss, let's get it right, and let's bounce back. So, you know, and that's why they all only have 2 losses. So, you know, I all 3 of those teams, I think the margin between them is extremely small, like extremely small. If you told me I had to pick one, I would probably pick Arizona right now, because I think
Tommy Lloyd, though.
Yeah, I'm not
6-4 in the tournament, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. I do worry about that a little bit. I do think that this is by far the most, well, obviously it's the best team that he's had there, but it's probably the most well-rounded team in terms of production from his big men and his guards. I like Arizona's. What's that?
Is Koa Pete going to be healthy?
Koa Pete should be healthy. He's been playing the last few games, so I think that he'll be okay. I really like their guards a lot, and I think that that's going to be really important for them when, when they get themselves into a tight game, later in the tournament, assuming they get later in the tournament.
Yeah.
I think that could be really big for them to control a game. I could see Michigan having some problems in that regard because they don't, Michigan's guards are great, but Michigan still has a little bit of that turnover problem that they had last year. It's not nearly as crazy as it was. They had a colossal number of turnovers in that first round game last year against UC San Diego, and they still found a way to win.
Yeah, that was crazy. Everybody had UC San Diego in that game.
Yeah, it was a very popular game, and it was a great game too. San Diego almost beat them. So they don't have that problem nearly to the extent as they did last year, where they were top 10 in the nation in turnovers, but they do still have it a little bit, and they fall victim to the sloppy play a little bit. I don't see that as much from Arizona. Duke, I think, is excellent, and I think that Duke is, the only thing that I think about with Duke is maybe the lack of a tough conference schedule. Does that help them or does that hurt them?
Yeah, ACC's been tough this year. Virginia's been okay, and UNC's been okay. I mean, they were a lot better with Caleb Wilson, who's actually going to I saw he broke his hand today. He's out for the entire season, so that would probably hurt UNC, right? I would think so.
It takes UNC out of, in my opinion, even sniffing the second weekend.
Yeah, 100%. But they'll still have a good chance of getting in, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be in. They'll be about a 6, I think.
Okay.
So if you take outside of those big three, and we could talk. We kind of already touched on UConn a little bit, and we touched on Florida a little bit. Yeah. Outside of those big three, or those big five, I guess you could say, I'm looking for teams who I've seen. I know they may have had some bad losses, but I know that I've seen their ceiling and or close to their ceiling, and their ceiling is good enough to beat most teams in the country on their best day. I think of Wisconsin. I'm not saying these teams are going to win the title, but if you told me they could get to the Final Four and sneak their way into the Final Four, it wouldn't shock me.
Wisconsin has 2 of the best wins in the entire country this year at Michigan and at Illinois.
They
lose somebody though, Winters.
Wisconsin?
Yeah. One of the better players got hurt last night or something.
Really? Not sure off the top. A healthy Wisconsin. I agree with Jake.
Yeah. A healthy Wisconsin I could see making some noise. Obviously, I could see that with Houston and Iowa State too. I mean, Houston and Iowa State are kind of the same type of team where they play ferocious defense. Yeah. And they just can't score. Iowa State can score. Milan Momcilovic, maybe one of the most important players in this whole tournament, shoots 51% from 3 on the season, which is unheard of. If he gets hot, that's, Iowa State probably only needs to score 68 points to win a lot of games in the tournament. Yeah. I think about Kansas with Darren Peterson.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, well, you guys know that I like Kansas, but it's just I've seen them be
controversial player. He's by far the most controversial player.
He's by far the most controversial. Yeah, he's by far the most controversial player, and he's also him and the team combined are like a sign graph. You never really know. It's the most confusing team. They look phenomenal without Darren Peterson and beat Arizona.
Number 1 Houston or Arizona,
yeah. Turn around 2 weeks later and stomp Houston. Just stomp Houston. And in the middle of all that, they beat Texas Tech on the road. So they have great wins. And they also, lose to Arizona State the other night in horrible fashion. Everybody was clamoring about the officiating, but last I checked, if you have 18 turnovers in a game and you shoot 29%, you probably aren't going to win that game. So, I think that I could see them finding their rhythm with Darren Peterson. Maybe the Big 12 tournament would help them a little bit to find a little bit more rhythm. I think it's a little lofty, but and then sneaky teams throughout the rest of the top 25 or 30 teams. I I could see St. John's making a little bit of a run. I could also see Arkansas doing it.
BYU?
Like these teams.
BYU?
Not as much as I did after Richie Saunders got hurt. I don't think I realized how big of an injury that was until it happened. Okay. He was really an important part of that team. And Dabansa is spectacular.
He's so good.
And like so unbelievably good. And I think that losing the wingman for him, I have a feeling that if they go down in the tournament in an early round, it's not going to be without him putting up a colossal number of points.
Yep. So what about like Louisville or an Arkansas with Mikael Brown on Louisville and Darius McCuff in Arkansas, two really good teams that kind of revolve around these draft prospects, though.
Yeah. I don't think, it's like we've seen in the past few years, like the teams with the high draft prospects, they've had either really bad tournaments or really good tournaments. As teams, they've had really good tournaments 100%. Or really bad tournaments. Like
look at Duke last year, but that's kind of an anomaly, though, right?
Well, yeah, sure, but like they also had a phenomenal team, so like we knew that they were going to go pretty far.
Flag and Knippel is a duo that you're like, how did you not win a national championship?
Don't forget about their center too. That was a top 15 draft pick.
Come on, Molowak. Yeah, so these teams that have a top draft pick on their team, like Acuff or Mikael Brown or Kingston Flemings from Houston, like you never really know. Or Illinois too, they have a couple guys,
right?
Keaton Wagler
and Hummerkaus and the son of the
Stojakovic.
Stojakovic.
Right. Come on, all day.
Yeah, sorry. But like these teams, like you never know when they're just gonna give you 40.
Yeah.
And if they give you 40, you'll probably win. So kind of like I think about this a lot. Like when we saw Carson Edwards go crazy in the tournament in 2019, and it was just game after game after game after game, and they got beaten in heartbreaking fashion against Virginia. That team looked like they were about to go win the title because he was playing so well. So it's entirely possible that one of those teams outside of the top 2 seeds gets hot like that with a player like that can just carry a team. Like
100%. Davis, you got anything else before we got to let this man go?
No, I think we might need some Jacob picks next week for Selection Sunday. Once the brackets come out, we're gonna need some futures in there.
We're gonna need Jacob Rothstein.
Yes, Jacob Rothstein. Yes,
yes, sir. Agreed. Yes, sir. All right, Jacob. Well, we really appreciate you joining us tonight. I know you're a very busy man. You got to go rain terror over Phoenixville tonight. So we'll have to let you go, but thank you for your appearing, and we might be seeing you next week on our bracket palooza, whatever you want to call it.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I'm excited for it, guys. And I'll be watching the games this weekend and all through next week. So I'll be in touch. Appreciate you guys having me.
Jacob, we sleep in May.
We sleep in May.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right, take care, guys.
See ya. That was electric, dude. I am so ready for March Madness now. Let's go.
There's just so much college basketball stuff happening at any given second. And honestly, we've seen crazy upsets today. Like, I know like we've all been working obviously all day today. So Jacob probably didn't see that Belmont lost as a 1 seed. Like there's just games happening every single second of the day right now. And we're seeing crazy upsets, and it's not even the second week of March yet. Like it's so electric to watch this stuff. And then we get good regular season games today, like Miami of Ohio.
I was going to say
St. John's go to Seton Hall tonight for a huge Big East game. I mean, it's an exciting time.
100%, dude. I can't wait for that Miami of Ohio versus Ohio matchup tonight. That's going to be electric. All right, Davis, we unfortunately have to move on. I could talk about this all